This is New Time on Silkway TV channel. We introduce you with the most visible news and important events that happen throughout this week in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. More details on politics, economy, social and cultural life, with opinions from the most recognizable experts of Kazakhstan and world. I'm Dauren Sagulov, and this is what you'll see today. Astana hosted experts from around the world of the sidelines of the forum to discuss global issues. An exclusive interview with the former Prime Minister of Belgium on the EU-Kazakhstan cooperation. The problem of gender-based violence. How does Kazakhstan collaborate with international organizations and other countries to address this issue? The annual Winter Charity Ball Bolashak took place in Astana. What will it fund this year? And what is the role of Triple G and Dimash Kudaibergen in this event? The confrontation of global powers and the risks of artificial intelligence development were discussed this week in the capital of Kazakhstan. Over 40 speakers from the United States, China, Spain, Belgium, Turkey and other countries participated in the 7th session of the Astana Club, an expert platform where crucial issues of the world are raised. Concerns were expressed about the possibility of escalating the crisis in US and China relations, as the competition for global dominance persists. In conclusion, participants agreed that countries need to establish a constructive dialogue. Discussing the global climate agenda, experts emphasized that the measures taken by governments are already insufficient. During the session dedicated to the development of the artificial intelligence, experts attempted to understand whether AI brings more benefits or threats to humanity. Participants concluded that countries need to work on common rules and legislative acts to control the development of AI. As the official representative of the Vatican remarked, I quote, "AI is a useful tool, but what it certainly won't replace is empathy, emotions and sympathy." Relations between Kazakhstan and Belgium have been intensifying over the last decade and tend to strengthen even more in the areas of energy production, natural resources and logistics. That was said by former Prime Minister of Belgium, Yves Le Terme, in an interview to the New Time reporter Baljan Samigulina on the sideline of Astana Club. According to the politician, Central Asia has a huge potential to deepen the partnership with the European Union, and Kazakhstan is a key country in terms of that. How has business environment changed in Kazakhstan, and what do countries need to implement for the benefits of global trade? Please watch the interview right now.
Mr. Le Terme, thank you very much for joining us today. How do you see the relations of Kazakhstan and Belgium, and how did they change since the time when you were a Prime Minister of Belgium?
I think they developed, not the least from an economic point. I remember from my time as the Deputy Secretary General of the OECD in Paris that in 2013, 14, 15 was a start of a process to change step by step, prudently, steadily, but always persisting, to open the economy. And that's of course a connecting point with Belgium. We are the gateway to Europe. Capital of Europe, Brussels, is in Belgium. But it's such a huge potential. There's an enormous potential in this region here. And it is a region that has not been very much in contact with us until now.
In which areas European Union and particularly Belgium can enhance partnership with Kazakhstan?
For a country like Belgium, there is the potential in terms of energy production, natural resources, but there's also our logistics. We are, from a logistics point of view, we are literally a gateway to Europe. It's important to find partners to develop these connections. There is the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. There is the European Gateway, a global gateway, but we need partners for that. And I think in this region, Kazakhstan is the most powerful country.
How do you assess the Kazakhstan's commitment and contribution to develop cooperation between European Union and Central Asia, and where are these relations will go on in the future? Your perspective.
I think they will intensify. Let me first underline that what I think is a very important characteristic of Kazakhstan. It is that it is a country that is peace-loving. Kazakhstan has always been very at the forefront to try to tackle issues of denuclearization, nuclear weapons, stop proliferation of nuclear weapons. And the European Union built on a peace treaty with the idea to build integration between countries that have been at war in the 20th century. This is very close to these peace-loving ideas. So I think the identity of the country, its geographical position, is something which comes as lots of opportunities for the European Union. I think that Europe is very interested in developing these potentials in terms of connection, in terms of cooperation. We have an interest in the European Union, which is a smaller part of the Eurasian continent. We have a keen interest in investing in good economic cooperation, scientific, technological cooperation, developing common infrastructure. So I think when you look at the whole of Central Asia, I think Kazakhstan is really the key country.
Let me continue the topic of economic cooperation. Kazakhstan has been developing, improving the economical environment for foreign investors. How did it help for Belgian companies to make business here? And what still Kazakhstan need to do to make business environment more attractive?
I know from my time at the OECD that Kazakhstan already has made a lot of progress and has already adapted issues of business law, of tendering, improving the safety and security for companies to operate here and the other way around to attract investment. So I think the regulatory framework already has improved a lot. Of course, it's key for countries like Kazakhstan, but also for nations that are, like Belgium, part of the European Union, to continue. I think that Kazakhstan and the European Union should join forces at the global stage also to be the advocates for further investment in free trade, in globalization and openness, and together try also to react a little bit against this tendency, this trend now of rising antagonism, and as a consequence of closing markets, setting up tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you again in Kazakhstan.
Rahmet, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Kazakhstan supports Turkmenistan's efforts in strengthening peace and stability, said Alibek Bakayev, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan. During the celebration of International Neutrality Day in Ashgabat, he stated that the neutral status of Turkmenistan on the political stage makes a significant contribution to enhancing stability in Central Asia. This and other important news topics on Central Asia is in review of our political observer Ojet Shegerbayev. Good evening, Ojet. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dorian. I'll be ready to start in a moment. On December 11, 2023, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, Mr. Alibek Bakayev, participated in the meeting of the Group of Friends of Neutrality for Peace, Security and Sustainable Development, which was held in Ashgabat in a hybrid format. During the meeting, the Kazakh side emphasized the importance of continuing a number of creative processes in the Central Asian region, aimed at solving challenges in the field of security and sustainable development. In this context, he outlined the relevance of Kazakhstan's initiative to create a UN Regional Center for Sustainable Development for Central Asia and Afghanistan in Almaty. The co-chairman of the government delegations for delimitation and demarcation of the disputed segments of Tajikistani-Kyrgyzstan common border met in Batken, Kyrgyzstan, on December 12. The parties discussed the outcomes of work carried out by the topographical and legal groups this year. The issues of demarcation of the disputed stretches of Kyrgyzstan's common border with Tajikistan are planned to be resolved by spring next year. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan already agreed upon another 24 kilometers of the border between them after special talks between the topographic working groups on this issue, which were held in Tajik northern city of Buston on November 29. Border talks between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan began in 2002. The countries share around 972 kilometers of border, 688 of which have been properly delineated, leading to tensions for the past 30 years. Today, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan have reportedly held more than 170 meetings and negotiations on this issue of the common border. Kazakhstan's railway company, Kazakhstan Temiroly, offers Tajikistan's cargo carriers 30 and 50% discounts on rail freight that contributes to an increase in cargo transportation volumes. This was discussed at a meeting between the Minister of Transport of Tajikistan, Mr. Azim Ibrahim, and the Ambassador of Kazakhstan in Tajikistan, Mr. Valihan Turakhanov. Valihan Turakhanov expressed his satisfaction with the cooperation between the two countries and noted that he would contribute to its further expansion, especially in the field of transportation. In August of this year, the press service of KTG reported that railway workers from Kazakhstan and Tajikistan would open a joint venture. At the same time, it was reported that the volume of rail transportation between countries was changing. The volume of railway transportation between the two countries exceeded 4 million tons last year and 2.7 million tons in the first half of this year. That's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. Thank you. Kazakhstan has sent another batch of humanitarian aid to Palestine, as reported earlier by the Ministry for Emergency Situation of Kazakhstan. The list comprises 14 items with a total cargo volume exceeding 38 tons. According to representatives from the ministry, the aid sent to Palestine includes food products, bedding and medical supplies. All items have been handed over to the Red Crescent Society. Earlier, Kazakhstan provided help to the Palestinian people in the amount of $1 million. It's worth noting that the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip was labeled as genuine apocalypse at the United Nations. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, urged Israel and the Hamas to take measures to de-escalate the situation. According to the latest data from the UN, more than 6,000 Palestinians have lost their lives during the conflict. The United Nations marked the conclusion of annual campaign 60 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. Ambassadors of 16 countries and heads of UN agencies traveled to every region of Kazakhstan to help raise awareness of this issue. Like in many countries, this issue is acute in Kazakhstan as well. According to UN, every 6 women in Kazakhstan experiences violence per year. Nevertheless, the country is taking various measures to improve the situation in this regard, including the assistance of the international community. Earlier this week, we recorded an exclusive interview with the Ambassador of Canada to Kazakhstan, Mr. Alan Hampson, and UN Resident Coordinator for Kazakhstan, Ms. Michaela Friberg-Story. They shed light on the specific steps being taken by Kazakhstan and the international community in addressing this issue. Please watch the fragment of the interview. Thank you very much for both of you to come here in our studio. It's a pleasure to have you. So let me start from this point, Ms. Friberg-Story. From your perspective, what are the most pressing challenges in addressing gender-based violence in Kazakhstan, and how do you believe international collaboration contributes to overcoming these challenges?
Well, thank you so much for having us and for bringing up this important topic. Domestic violence is a global challenge, and we see that oppression of women and girls around the world is something that every country struggles with, also Kazakhstan. Okay. The most important issue for Kazakhstan is to look at the issues that relates to both legislation, to political and economic empowerment of women, and of course, changing social norms and behavior. When it comes to the collaboration with the international community, I think that as across the board, Kazakhstan has a very strong collaboration with the international community and specifically with the United Nations, and we stand ready to continue this dialogue. Great progress is being done.
Dear Ambassador, may I ask you this? In 2019, National Geographic published a list of the safest countries in the world for women to live in. And Canada was one of the top countries in this list. What key strategies and policies do you believe have contributed to Canada's success in this area? And how might these lessons be applied in the context of Kazakhstan?
It's interesting, you know, I wasn't aware of that statistic. I'm sure it's true, but you know, we still have a ways to go. Your viewers might be surprised to hear that in Canada, you know, we still have 2/3 of women who 2/3 of Canadians who know a woman who's been the victim of physical, sexual or emotional abuse. And every night in Canada we still have about 6,000 women and children staying in shelters because they're not safe at home. and 300 women were turned away from shelters because there's not enough space for them. So we're still working. We acknowledge that, as Madame Fribourg-Story said, that this is a global challenge. But we are proud of the road we've traveled. You know, when I was young, in 1989, we had a critical sort of moment in Canada where there was a massacre. It was on December 6th, so just last week was the anniversary, where you know, a madman killed 14 women at a technical college. And this was very personal for me. My mom at the time was studying in university in the same city, so we thought, what if he'd gone there instead of to the different college? And this really sparked a national conversation that's already more than 30 years ago, and I think that helped us tackle the issue as a society to some extent, with national action plans on ending gender-based violence, and really a national conversation about how important it is that every member of the society you know, commit to nonviolence and contribute to a safe place for women and girls across the country. So that's a long road that we've traveled. Today our gender-based violence strategy is containing a lot of the sort of common points you'll find in countries around the world: prevention of gender-based violence, support to victims and survivors and families, and work towards a responsive justice system. I think you know, what's been successful in our approach is an ability to face facts, even difficult facts, and have that national conversation about what's driving violence in families or in our society, and take the necessary steps to create a safe society for women, including, as I mentioned, the last point of our strategy on a responsive justice system. We need to make sure that the system, that police facing women who come to report complaints, they're listening, they believe the victims, and they take action. So these are some of the things that have worked for us in Canada, but we still have a road to travel.
Ms. Fribourg-Story, you're originally from Sweden, aren't you? Sweden, it's another country that achieved huge success in preventing gender-based violence. Can you discuss the role of legislation to create this safe environment? Is the laws strict in Sweden?
Well, first of all, I think, like Ambassador Hamza was saying, it's not no country is free from this, and nor is Sweden. We also have a number of deaths every year where women are killed by a close partner. And as long as the home is the most dangerous place for a woman to be, we have serious issues. I think one of the greatest legislative changes in Sweden that has had a positive impact was in the early 1980s, when the law was shifted so that the person who made the allegation, the victim, the woman in this case, no longer needed to testify and be the witness herself, but other people could witness, and the prosecutor would have to follow up. And I know that this is the change in the legislation that has happened also here in Kazakhstan, that there can be witnesses, video recordings, something else. And this, I think, is absolutely central, because then you are actually creating a system where the system looks after the woman, the survivor, and you're not putting all the responsibility on her. Of course, as United Nations, we argue for a criminalization of domestic violence. And I would like to say that there is something very odd when the person that you have a close relationship with, when that person should be someone who looks after you, protects you, and vice versa. When it's a lesser crime when that person beats you than when you're beaten by a stranger on the street. So for me, it should almost be worse when you get beaten in the family than by a stranger on the street. However, I think it's important to underline that the laws themselves are not going to stop the violence. We need to empower women and girls politically and economically, and we need to change our societal norms. Some say that in Sweden we have very strong gender traditions, the old Vikings, but you know, you have the old nomads here as well with equally strong, strong women. So I'm not sure that we need to go back in history. I'm quite sure that we can fix this here and now for all of us.
Yes, it's true. Dear Ambassador, may I ask you this? Could you please tell us more about the campaign, 60 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is an annual global campaign to raise awareness about the imperative to take action against gender-based violence. The United Nations leads each year with a number of activities, and this year there was no exception, with some really interesting work at the Nurlijol, I think it's called,
Yes.
train station, and other conferences, gatherings of Central Asian women leaders, and so on. One element of this year's campaign that was a bit unusual, where Canada played a role working with UN partners, was to organize contests among students at universities and schools and high schools in 18 cities across Kazakhstan, including some of the smaller cities like Taraz, Qazaqstan, Taldykorgan, Rider, where students debated about gender-based violence, did paintings or case studies, depending on the level of the school, to really engage the creativity and passion of students to identify ideas and solutions on gender-based violence, and I think to really raise the awareness across the country about the importance of this issue. And then at the conclusion of the contests, we organized for 16 ambassadors and I think 5 UN agency country directors to travel across the country and visit with the students in each of those schools and universities to hear their ideas, have some dialogue, and present awards and sort of engage in a bit of a ceremony for their participants and the winners. So this was something new, where we had a huge international participation, traveling across the country, and I think trying to connect with that passion of students and deliver that message all across the country. It's only a first step. Obviously, we weren't in every school and every university, but I think it's a nice initiative to get out of the Astana and Almaty maybe bubble and have these conversations in a broader part of the country. I myself went to Taldykorgan, where unfortunately there were some distressing incidents of violence against women this year, as there were in other parts of the country, and so I was proud to have a really rich conversation at Jettisu University with strong support from the university, from local government and national government, and we were able to have a really rich conversation with the students. So I think it was only one element of the campaign this year. There were many other components, but it's one that I know was rich and exciting for the students involved and for all of us ambassadors and UN heads who had a chance to meet the brightest across Kazakhstan.
And I think I have to tell you, while I have an opportunity, thank you very much for both of you for your work in solving these problems, our problems. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another Kazakhstani startup has attracted our attention. EasyTap is a platform that finds hourly workers in the retail sector. The creators are currently expanding their projects to the Kyrgyz market. Notably, the startup has already garnered partnerships with supermarket chains, canteens and cafes in the neighboring country. Currently, over 1,000 applicants from Kyrgyzstan have registered on the application. How did the founders of the startup, Magzum Tolesh and Temirlan Kabulbekov, come up with the idea of the project? And what are the future plans of Kazakh businessmen? Learn from the material of Baljan Samigulina.
EasyTap service addresses the staffing challenges faced by businesses during peak hours, connecting them with hourly line staff. Workers in turn benefit from flexible schedules and weekly salary payments for part-time engagements. This innovative solution tackles workforce shortages head-on. According to co-founder of the service, Magzum Tolesh, the idea of a startup came after analyzing the workplace challenges encountered by companies in Kazakhstan.
We spend a lot of time to explore the problems of the companies. For example, in Kazakhstan, in Central Asia, it is a huge problem with high turnover rate of blue-collar workers. For example, in Kazakhstan, it is about 300% per year. It means that if you have 1,000 workers, in 1 year you will hire 3,000 workers. That's why we have solved this problem, and we gave the application for the companies.
In 2 years, the service founder secured private investments totaling $270,000. Notably, EasyTap business model has proven its efficiency with over 150,000 individuals across 15 cities in Kazakhstan. The platform boasts connections with over 70 global and Kazakhstani companies. Looking ahead, the founders are set to expand their operations, noting confidence in the opportunities available for further growth.
We don't want to be only like a local company. We want to be an international company. And our focus now, next 2 years, on Central Asia, because we believe in Central Asia economy and growth. Next 2 years, we will be in Kyrgyzstan, in Uzbekistan, and maybe in Azerbaijan. And then, after 2 years, we will go worldwide.
The startup ecosystem in Kazakhstan, to improve it, we have all opportunities. For example, we have a lot of educational programs, incubators, accelerators, government support, simplifying business registrations and taxes. And the main one, I think we have great people. So I think we have all opportunities to make Kazakhstan unicorn, so we just need to execute.
As per a study conducted by Financial Times, projections indicate that by 2050, as much as 83% of the working-age population will be engaged in the gig economy. This paradigm shift entails individuals working on specific projects outside traditional state employment, where tasks are addressed within specified time frames. Балжан Самигульна, Адель Харламова, Айман Кайбульдина, Ерик Кермкулов, Silkway TV Channel, Almaty.
Astana's 14th Winter Charity Ball, organized by Bolshak Corporate Charity Foundation, raised over $200,000, drawing participation from around 300 attendees. Gennady Golovkin's boxing gloves and Dimash Kudaibergen's jacket took the spotlight as the highest bidding items, fetching over $40,000 at the auction. The proceeds will support inclusive education for children with special needs. New Time reporter Baljan Samigulina attended the event and ready to share insights.
Kazakh community recently joined together to make a difference in the lives of kids with disabilities, donating means for 14th Winter Charity Ball. The funds raised will benefit to the inclusive education made possible thanks to citizens and sponsors.
As friends and partners of the Bolshak Corporate Foundation, we find inspiration and hold deep respect for the extensive efforts of the entire team, their admirable goals and the valuable assistance they offer to vulnerable populations. It brings us pride to be able to support their mission.
Early annual Winter Ball raised funds for the advancement of inclusive education in schools. However, according to the chairperson of the Board of Trustees, Dinara Gaplan, the fund is now shifting its focus to colleges. Pilot projects aimed at supporting students in the new direction are currently underway.
During 12 years, what we did, we equipped and opened around 78 specialized organizations. We have opened about 58 resource classes in 22 cities of Kazakhstan. We also trained 3,000 teachers and assistants to teachers in order to be able to work with children with autism. What do we plan to do with the funds of this year? We plan to develop inclusive football for children with autism and Down syndrome. As well, we plan to start a pilot for college.
The auction was hosted by well-known entrepreneur Baby Talibekov, who reminiscing about past years, revealed the highest selling item. It was a tiara fetching $265,000. This year, Gennady Golovkin's boxing gloves, Dimash Kudaibergen's leather jacket, autograph racket by Elena Rybakina and various t-shirts by players of Real Madrid and Barcelona football clubs were sold under the hammer. Yet what truly matters is the goodwill behind every auction participant's contribution.
This story is not about money. Through this ball, we're reshaping our world for the better, striving for the well-being of our children. In auctions, people battle for a greater good, and this is the most important thing.
The Winter Ball has not just been a celebration, it's a collective investment in the education of young mindsets. Baljan Samigulna, Bigbolat Bazarov, Silkway TV Channel, Astana.
That's it for today. All the main news about Kazakhstan and Central Asia you can find here. More special projects about our country you can also watch on Silkway TV channel. So stay tuned and see you later.